So one thing that I've definitely noticed, and I honestly noticed that like a long time ago, or a while ago. So a lot of people in the new age, and like, okay, look, like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with working on yourself. Some of the modalities that I used for like clearing, such as, you know, like spiral modality, brain mapping, EFT tapping, like some of those things, like, you know, I feel like I got through, you know, within 3 to 5 years, like 3 years of like straight clearing stuff. I feel like I accomplished 30 plus years of like traditional therapy. Because a lot of things, you know, it's like I knew that I had, like for a long time, it's like I couldn't put my finger on it. It's like I know that there are things like within me that need to be cleared, and I don't necessarily know what they are. So a lot of those different modalities and I guess programs that I did, you know, I guess I'm still in the process of deciding whether or not I think that those are new age, because especially the EFT tapping, and like, to be honest, so like the last sort of clearing program, it was a manifestation program, but the clearing program that I did, and I mean, I always have seen manifestation as like becoming the person who you are and becoming the person who you are meant to be. You know, like when you are actively like being and engaging with the world, like as the highest and best version of yourself, you're going to attract better things. Or I used to say, like, you know, your highest and best version of yourself is already living on your highest timeline, so you already have the things that you want to have. You know, it was never for me about like getting physical things. I mean, though, I'm not gonna lie, like I definitely wanted the physical things, and like, but I was more concerned with like my inner like being, you know, like I was much more concerned with like who I was being, and like how I was showing up, and the way that I felt about myself. Because when I first started doing this work, like I was just completely miserable all of the time. So yeah, so with the EFT tapping, like I was doing something relating to money, but it's like, you know, you write out all the reasons why you can't have the thing, like all the feelings attached to it, like how does it make you feel to think about having that, and then what are all the reasons why you can't have it. And it's super interesting when you do stuff like that, because things come up that you would think have no relation to money, you know, like I'm saying that I want to manifest, or that I want to be a match for like this amount of money. Like, why is stuff around mental health showing up, and why is stuff around God showing up? So, you know, I've always been connected, like I've always had downloads and insights, and like, but like I never did channeling. Like I never got into like, okay, let me like connect to this deity. Like things have come to me, which I guess is God speaking to me. God has, you know, God has spoken to me since I was a child, like, you know, which for me was always like the Catholic faith, and why like I was so turned off from any kind of Christianity for a while is because, you know, church hurt with Catholicism, but they're like, oh, like it's bad to be a psychic or a medium or to do these things, like it's bad. But at the same time, it was like, okay, but I've had these abilities since I was a child. I've known things. I've had prophetic visions and dreams and known things since I was a child. I wasn't looking for the information. Like, it just came to me, you know? Like, I saw angels as a child. I saw aliens or demons, whatever you want to call them, as a child. So, you know, for me, that was always like, how are you gonna, like, so I'm bad, so like I'm just an inherently bad person then, because you know, like, what does that say about me? Because I have these gifts and abilities, and it's called the gift of prophecy, and like being a seer, which a Catholic priest actually told me that a year ago, because I went to get some holy water, and I was talking to him a little bit, and he said, oh, so you're a seer? And I was just like, yeah, seer, mystic, like, yeah, you know, all those words, like, absolutely. And, you know, like, so for me, it's like, I wasn't going out trying to develop these gifts and abilities. Like, I wasn't going into New Age practices because I was trying to develop my third eye. I mean, sure, there was a little bit of that, because for a long time it was just like, well, why can't that be true? Like, you know, we're not taught these things in school. Like, okay, we're taught like the Bible, but like we're not given a comprehensive lesson and idea about like the other things. Like, we're not really given all of the information. And I know some people will say, well, you're not supposed to have that information because you're not God. And like, I get that. But for me, when someone says, don't do that, and I say, why not? And they say, because I said so, it's like, no, that's not good enough. And I've always been that way. Like, I want to know why, not because I want to be confrontational, or, you know, or difficult. It's like, I need to understand in my brain. I need to understand why not. Like, you telling me because I said so, or just don't do it, like, that's not gonna work for me. So yeah, like, I was never trying to develop myself in that way. I did get attuned to Reiki, but that was because I was having panic attacks, and I noticed that when I would go and get Reiki, it would really, really help with my anxiety. So I got attuned to it so that I could give myself Reiki when I was having anxiety. And honestly, that really did a lot for me. Like, that was really helpful. And then I did get into the chakras, but that was also via the lens of, okay, your chakras are also energy bodies. If you're going to clear the organs and the emotional body, you can just go straight to the chakras and make an intention. I want to clear this from the chakras, instead of having to go in and muscle test and look for the thing. Like, you know, okay, why am I angry all the time, or whatever, just as an example. Instead of having to muscle test, well, why am I angry, and going into all of that and spending hours just trying to pinpoint like what it is that's stored in your system causing the anger, you can just set the intention, get into like, you know, a meditative state, set the intention to clear that from your chakras, and then like that's going to filter into the rest of the body. So like, that's why I got into that. And a lot of like the New Age stuff that I got into was from a place of healing. And I mean, I can't say that all of it is bad, because for one, like, I'm not the same person that I was 5 years ago. And that's because I've honestly done the work, and I've worked really hard on it. Like, I was a fucking mess of a person 5 years ago. Like, just miserable. Like, I was depressed, I was miserable, I hated myself, everything else. And like, I had a lot of like social stuff, but like, you know, like social anxiety. But then, so I was doing, like, because I've always, like, had those messages and had that voice and had this knowing, or whatever you want to call it, you know, as I'm doing this work, writing out my beliefs, why can't I have this amount of money that I want, or this thing in relation, and mental health stuff comes up, or stuff about God comes up, I wrote that down too, because I, you know, like, it wasn't trying to fit it into what I wanted it to be. And some of the things that I wrote down were like, there is no God, there's nothing looking out for me, the God of this world is an evil God, like, things around, like, those were blocks for me in terms of God, and that's what I really believed. So I did EFT tapping to clear that, and then 4 months later, I'm like, oh, like, maybe God is real, like, maybe Jesus is real. So, like, I can't say that it's completely bad, because I don't believe that it's completely bad, and I also don't believe that I would be in this space I am now in terms of God and Jesus without doing those clears, that EFT tapping on it. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a baby Christian, but, like, there's a lot that I'm still learning and sorting through, because, as I've said, like, there's a lot of, like, the Catholic faith that doesn't at all resonate with me, and it hasn't since I was a child. That's not a new thing, you know, like, the whole, you know, this communion rite is turning this into the literal body and blood of Jesus, and then we're gonna eat it. Like, that's just kind of fucked up to me. Like, explain to me how that's not witchcraft and cannibalism and Satanism. Like, explain to me how that's not, because that's exactly what that is, and that practice has never sat right with me. And another thing that's never sat right with me is, well, you can't talk to God, only the priest can talk to God. And it's like, okay, well, like, a lot of these priests, these Catholic priests, go through purification rites and purification rituals, which are very similar to some of the clearing stuff that I've been doing these past 5 years. Like, that, you know, but that's also a lie, because, like, anybody can talk to God, anybody can have a relationship with God. You don't need to go through a priest who's probably involved in some Masonic, satanic kind of stuff to begin with to get answers. Like, I went, oh shit, I hate the fucking ice. I went to a priest, I guess about 8 years ago, and, like, I had a thing in my house, and, like, it drove my dog crazy. I had to put him down, and I was really scared, and I went to the priest because I was like, literally, like, I need help with this. Like, I've been saging it and whatever, but, like, I was honestly looking for help, and the priest just kind of fucking laughed at me and said, well, why don't you go sage it? And, you know, like, there was evil in that man's eyes when he spoke that. So, like, you know, additionally, like, yes, Christians can have demons. Like, you can have generational shit, even if you yourself have never opened any doors. Like, you can have ancestral, generational demons, spirits, curses, whatever you want to call them, programming, conditioning, whatever. You can have that even if you yourself have never opened any doors. So, like, I think it's important for everybody to get some kind of deliverance. And, you know, perfect example, like, when I was a child, I was terrorized in my sleep. And, like, I remember speaking with something in my room at night, and my little nephew, he sees things too, and he tells me about them, and, you know, I'm like, well, you know, you can tell them to leave, and he's like, well, they just want to talk, and I'm like, yeah, and, like, that's what I used to think when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, it's just little aliens, and, like, it was probably little demons, but, you know, with, like, Lisa Frank and, like, all the people trying to make UFOs and aliens cool, as I grew up and was, like, introduced to that programming, I was like, oh, it was just aliens. But, like, perfect example, like, if just being a Christian or just being a Catholic was supposed to protect you from that, then why was I experiencing those things as a child. Like, if being a Christian or Catholic protects you from those things, then I wouldn't have experienced those things as a child. So it just doesn't add up to me. But yeah, I mean, my focus of the New Age was always healing. Like, you know, like I said, I did get into Reiki. The longest I was consistent with doing Reiki, I think, was like 60 days. The longest I was consistent with meditation was maybe 45 days. You know, a lot of it didn't feel right to me, and it was probably a protection that I didn't make a lot of money doing those things, because, you know, for one, the other thing, it's like, you know, you get these coaches and you're like, okay, I resonate with what they're saying, whatever, and you go to them for the healing or whatever, and then you're like, oh wow, they're making a lot of money, or at least they're saying they're making a lot of money, you know, like, cool, like, I have gifts, like, I have abilities, why don't I do this to make money too? And then you can get caught up in like, oh, okay, like, what am I doing for, you know, like, how can I profit like these other people have? And like, God knows I tried. Like, I had programs, and people never paid me. I've never received any money for any spiritual gifts. Like, I've never received money for that, for anything in that nature, and I couldn't understand why. And I'm like, why can't I be consistent with these daily practices? Like, why can't I motivate myself to do these things? Like, why am I not making any money? What's wrong with me that I'm not able to make money in the same sphere that other people are able to make money in? And I think it was a protection, because it's much easier to walk away from it when you're not making money doing it, because it's like, well, I don't really have anything to lose except the fact that, like, maybe I've been wrong about some things, but like, I'm not also getting rid of my income by saying, oh, okay, I've changed my mind about some things. But, you know, it's funny because, you know, listening to Christian things, so many people, even Christians, are so judgmental and no, you're not doing faith right if you don't do these things, or if you do these things, like, you're not being a Christian right. And it's like, who fucking cares? Like, isn't the belief of Christianity that if you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, that you're saved and that's it? And, you know, like, so however that works for you, like, you know, it's not really, it's your relationship with God. It's not everybody's relationship with God. It's your relationship. So, like, it doesn't, you know, it's a lot of the same stuff in the spiritual community is what I used to call it. But, you know, what I started noticing, because I was looking at people doing different things, and I was like, there are a few things that I noticed. Looking at people doing different things, it was like, okay, everybody is doing the same fucking thing. Like, everybody has basically the same program, the same everything, but each of them are like, no, this is the key, this is the thing, like, this is the one that's gonna make you do all these things. And I fell for a few of those, for sure. But, you know, they're also just parrots of each other. And they're all super judgmental, and a lot of them are super fake. Like, there are so many people who present this image online of, oh, I'm so happy, my life is amazing, whatever. But when they're not posting reels, when they're not posting on the internet, when they're not promoting their business and how fucking amazing their program is, they're fucking miserable. And like, there are so many people that I worked with who at the time I was like, they're so gifted, like, they have light language. I never had light language. Also probably another protection, but like, I never had that. And it's like, if I had this ability to do this, like, why aren't you sitting there and like speaking that to yourself all day long to like drop all the things, you know? Like, so many of the people that I worked with and mentored with, or even just observed, like, are fucking miserable people. And you know, it's like, I just want to be happy and like be nice to people and be able to like integrate with normal people, you know, like if you're so high on your horse that you're like, I'm so special, I have all these secrets of the universe, like, yeah, you might know some things, but how is that helpful to you? Like, all it does is isolate you from people. Like, you know what? We live in a 3D material world. Unless you're independently wealthy, like, you have to go out into the world and interact with people and do things to make money, because we live in a world which requires money to live. So, like, if you are super spiritual or, you know, into all these things that have you thinking that you're so much better or more special than other people, how is that helpful to you? Like, it's not. It's isolating. It's, you know, what isn't the point of the work to be happy? Isn't the point of the work to be able to go out into the world and have a positive experience on other people and to be nicer to people and to like enjoy your fucking life? Isn't that the whole point of this work? Like, that's what it was for me. Like, I want to get to the point where I can be happy and enjoy life and not be fucking miserable all the time. But it's just, you know, it's, I don't know. So I need to get gas and turn this off. But that's just something I've been thinking about, because, you know, I do think that there's a supernatural element to even Christianity. I do think people need, whether you call it deliverance, clearing, curse breaking, whatever. I think everybody needs that. You know, anything you're using, and I did get into tarot too, but I stopped using the cards because I was like, I don't need cards to read people's energy. So it's just like for show. If I use, you know, it's like, it's just, I don't know. It felt inauthentic for me to do that, because I'm like, I don't need to read the cards to read your energy. Like, so it, like, I'm still figuring out my beliefs on some of the things and like how certain things fit in with me, because like I said, like I've always had visions. I've always known things. I've always or as a child I saw things. I don't see things anymore, but you know, so it's like I haven't, when I got into the new age spiritual community, whatever, I did that to heal and to just, you know, I was on a quest for the truth. Like, I was trying to find the truth. What is the truth? What is their actual truth, you know? And I mean, yeah, I definitely did get a little bit into it where I'm like, oh, like, you know, I'm ISIS and some crazy shit like that, which surprisingly I've heard happens with a lot of people. Like, it's not completely uncommon for people to like have something, especially with like a twin flame thing, where they're like, oh, I'm ISIS and this is so serious and we're reincarnated. And I don't know, for me, I'm just kind of like, I did get into that a little bit, and like the star seeds and astrology and human design, but for me it's like the astrology was never about like oh, let me direct my life by the stars. Like, I did get a little bit caught up in the Mercury retrograde thing for a little while, and the full moon and new moon were just like, okay, what am I letting go during the full moon? What do I want to like get rid of? And the new moon, like, okay, what do I want to bring more of in my life? Like, it was a very holistic sort of way of doing that. And then the astrology was just to like understand myself better. And I don't know, I'm kind of in this place where it's like, if you're using it to like understand your personality better in terms of healing, like, you know, like the Venus, for example, that's like how your love, that shows you what your love language is. Like, me being in Leo, like, I want to be shown off, I want to be treated like a queen, but that's also how I show love to myself. So that's also how like I am authentic and bold with myself. Like, you know, I'm not listening to my own advice today because I don't have like my hair done or my makeup on or anything else. But like, I feel better about myself when like I'm presenting myself nicely in the world. You know, but I mean, at the end of the day with that, like, if you're using that as like, well, I'm always going to be this way because I'm a Scorpio moon and I'm just fucking moody, like, you're limiting yourself. You're saying, like, you're giving power to something outside of yourself and outside of God. I mean, you're giving power away if you take that as like a life or death sentence, like, I'm always going to be this way because I have this astrology chart. Like, no, you can decide, okay, like, I'm a Virgo sun, like, that means I'm moody and judgmental as fuck, like, I'm just always going to be judgmental of people. But you can actually decide, like, you know what, like, I don't specifically like some of those traits, and like, yes, I do like to organize, yes, I do like order, I like, you know, things to be a certain way. Like, if I expect for things to be like this, I like for them to be like that. But I can also grow and evolve through and past that. If I don't like those traits about myself, I don't have to have those traits forever. So yeah, those are just my thoughts. Those are some things I've been thinking about. And obviously, like, I'm still growing in my relationship with God and with Jesus and figuring out what that means for me. So, you know, this isn't to tell anybody what to think, believe, do, whatever. And this also, I mean, I don't pretend to have all the answers. I don't think I've ever pretended to have all the answers. But you know what, at the same time, it's like, your relationship with God is your relationship with God, and nobody should be telling anybody else how to have a relationship with God, because the prime tenet, T-E-N-E-T, the prime, one of the main things about that faith is, okay, if you believe that, if you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, accept that he came here and was murdered in a brutal fucking way for you, like, you don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. Nobody fucking deserves that, but he did that, okay? Like, and if you believe that and you're like, I'm not worthy, but God says I'm worthy, so then it's like, you might think, oh, I'm not worthy of having this amount of money, but God is like, no, you're worthy of like more than that, you know? Like, if we are waiting on ourselves and like allowing ourselves to dictate like what we're worthy of having and receiving, like, we're always meant for so much more than that, you know? But at the same time, it's like, however that relationship with God develops, like, that's your relationship with God. Nobody can tell you that it's right or wrong, as long as, you know, based on what they say. Like, if you accept that, do that, like, if that is what you truly believe and feel in your heart, then like, you're saved. Like, that's what it says. So like, you know, it's fine to want to read the Bible, it's fine to want to philosophize, and like, you know, I encourage people to read the Bible, but it's fine to say, oh no, I think it was meant like this, I think it was meant like that. But like, at the end of the day, like, nobody knows anybody else's heart but God. God is the only one who knows your heart, that knows anybody else's heart, and he's the only one that can judge people at the end of the day. Like, you know, so like, I don't think anybody should be telling anybody like how their relationship with God should look. I just don't. Or like, what practices are okay and which ones are bad. Like, I don't believe that God put us on this earth to suffer and like not be the best that we could be, and like not, you know, to suffer and be poor. Like, if that's what you want, that's fine. Like, Jesus took a vow of poverty, but if that's not what you want, I don't think that like you have to, you know, I don't believe that. And yeah, so I'm just chatting. I could talk about this forever, but I need to get gas and do this Instacart batch. So thanks for watching. I'm sure I'll have more of these as I talk through and work through my beliefs and what they are and what they mean and everything else. So thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.